This video explores historical medical practices from the past. Some topics may be unsettling for certain viewers. The content is presented solely for educational and historical understanding. Viewer discretion is advised. Medicine is supposed to heal, to ease pain, to protect life. But history tells a darker story. For centuries, some of the most trusted doctors on earth committed acts that today would be considered torture, often with full confidence that they were saving lives. No anesthesia, no consent, no understanding of a human body, only belief, tradition, and fear. Tonight, we step into the shadowed corridors of medical history, where treatment crosses into terror. This is the most disturbing medical practices in history. For over 2,000 years, bloodletting was considered the ultimate cure. The logic came from ancient Greek medicine, especially the teachings of Hippocrates, who believed the body was governed by four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Disease, they thought, came from imbalance. The solution? Remove blood. Doctors sliced veins, applied heated cups, used leeches to suck patients dry. Fever? Bleed them. Headache? Bleed them. Mental illness? Bleed them more. Even kings weren't spared. In 1799, George Washington fell ill, and doctors drained nearly 40% of his blood in a single day. He died shortly after, not from disease, but from treatment. Imagine having a headache, and the solution is drilling a hole into your skull. This was trepanation, one of the oldest surgical practices in human history, dating back over 7,000 years. The belief? Evil spirits lived inside the head. Mental illness, seizures, depression, all caused by demons trapped in the skull. So doctors or shamans cut or scrape a hole into the cranium. No anesthesia, no sterilization, no understanding of infection. Some patients survived, many didn't. And disturbingly, this practice still exists today in underground circles, promoted as spiritual awakening. History doesn't always stay buried. In the early 20th century, mental illness terrified society. Psychiatric hospitals overflowed. Doctors were desperate. Then came the lobotomy, popularized by Walter Freeman. This procedure involved severing connections in the brain's frontal lobe. Freeman's method was especially horrifying. He used an ice pick-like tool, inserted through the eye socket, hammered directly into the brain. No operating room, no gloves, sometimes no anesthesia. Patients often became quiet. emotionless, childlike. Doctors called it success. Families called it relief. But what was really destroyed was personality itself. By the time lobotomies were banned, over 40,000 people had undergone the procedure. Many survived, but were never truly alive again. Mercury, a metal known today for causing brain damage. But for centuries, it was a medicine. Doctors prescribed mercury to treat syphilis, constipation, parasites, even insomnia. Patients were told, salivation is proof it's working. In reality, mercury destroyed the nervous system. Teeth fell out, speech slurred. Insanity followed. The phrase, mad as a hatter, comes from mercury poisoning. Hat makers inhaled mercury fumes daily. Medicine didn't cure illness. It slowly killed the patient instead. Before the mid-1800s, surgery was a nightmare. Patients were fully awake. Doctors worked fast, not to reduce pain, but to prevent screaming crowds from fainting. Amputations lasted minutes. Patients were held down. Some bit leather straps to avoid biting off their own tongues. Infection was so common that hospitals were called houses of death. It wasn't until Joseph Lister introduced antiseptic practices that survival became possible. Until then, surgery was often a death sentence, disguised as hope. Mental institutions were places of silence. Patients were restrained, isolated, and experimented on. Doctors tested. Extreme cold baths, sensory deprivation, electroshock without consent. People weren't treated as humans. They were treated as subjects. Many were institutionalized, not for illness, but for being different. Too emotional, too rebellious, too inconvenient. Medicine became control. These practices weren't done by villains. They were done by respected doctors, endorsed by institutions, believed to be correct. That's the most disturbing part. History reminds us that science without humility becomes cruelty. That progress is not guaranteed, and that today's certainty could become tomorrow's horror. So the next time you trust medicine, remember the past it grew from, because healing without wisdom can become destruction. If this journey through history unsettled you, that was the point. This is Renaissance Reframed, where the past isn't glorified. It's understood.